Just a little further. I had to find a way to stop them trying to kill me.
You made a serious mistake.
Not as serious as yours.
Pain.
At the end of the day, do you have a front tail or not? At the end of the day, it's pretty simple to just see, do you have a front tail or not? But if you have a front tail, like then you have a penis. That's just the way it is. I genuinely think everybody's striving to do their best.
Is that what you think? You think?
Hey, what's your fascination with Hiller and why?
Yo, the other day on the Sevon podcast, there was a guy named Bryce Smith, who you may not have heard of, and I hadn't heard of him either. I needed to do a little bit of digging, but before we do any digging on Bryce Smith, I'm going to allow himself to paint a picture of himself. There are going to be 3 things that he says about himself that we are then going to very heavily keep in mind when he then ends up talking about me, which he brings up towards the back end of this video and ends up taking most of it because, dude, don't you know it? I love talking about myself. So let's hear him first talk about who he is, Mr. Bryce Smith.
And so I don't really get offended, man. In basketball, there was so much shit talking that like, if you get offended by everything people say, you're in for a short ride. And I wanted to ride the wave as long as I could. I heard this funny thing from Rogan one time. He goes, words are like noises coming from a mouth. When you go to the zoo and you see animals making noise, you don't get offended. And I always thought that was a cool way to take perception to people's verbiage, where it's just noises coming from a mouth. And on occasion, there's going to be word vomit based on stress or emotional regulation. And so I've always just like assumed positive intent and then explored it deeper just out of sheer curiosity.
That's number 1. He assumes positive intent and he doesn't get offended. He talks about it via monkeys and all that. When you look up what the word offended means, resentful or annoyed typically as a result of perceived insult. Okay, so remember that. Number 1, Bryce does not get offended. Let's keep going.
You started the podcast. Why? Why did you start the podcast?
Oh, I was hoping you'd ask that, man. And I try to connect with people and create a safe space for their light to shine. And it's more about being REAL and less about the REEL.
It's not about the money.
I'm not a rocket scientist in the podcast space by any means, but I do what's called gas. And that means I give a shit.
Holy shit.
And to be quite frank, like, I'm not doing this for other people. I'm doing it for me. And I want to elicit cool opportunities and special stories for other people. And I think when you do things for the right reasons, inevitably, like, the world takes notice.
He does this and he doesn't care about attention. He doesn't care what other people think. He doesn't do it for the REEL. He does it for the REAL. He gasses.
Gas pedal, gas pedal.
He's got gas. So number 1, he doesn't get offended. And number 2, he doesn't do it for the views. He does it because he is Bryce Smith. But wait a minute, guys. I gotta do this right now. Of course, the first thing that you do when you want to find out who somebody is you go to their social media stuff. So I go to his Instagram and he's got 100,000 followers, which is crazy for a male individual in the CrossFit ecosystem. How do you do it? I mean, freaking, I don't know, Nick Matthew doesn't even have that many, and he's crop top man running around. Everyone knows who Nick Matthew is. You look and he goes, okay, he was a CrossFit Games athlete in 2015, 16, 17, 18. Maybe during that period of time, he picked up a whole bunch of followers. So you go over to his social blade, and that isn't the case. In 2018, 2019, he had 27, 28, 29,000 followers. But there's this massive pickup somewhere around August or September of 2020. And right around then, he goes from, 28 to 30,000 followers all the way up to 130. He put on 100,000 Instagram followers. What did you do? You didn't do anything. Nothing happened. And you wonder, where did those come from? And it becomes a little bit more apparent when you look to this past year. And in 1 year's time, mostly in 2-3 weeks time, he lost 30,000 of those followers. So you pick up 100,000, you lose 30,000, and you're asking yourself, you must have done something incredible that got you all of this attention all at once. And he didn't. And you also must have done something that made a whole bunch of people angry all at once. And he didn't. And look, there's nothing happening on there. He didn't do anything super crazy that would have made all these people angry and make them unfollow him. So you know what happened? This dude who doesn't care about followers, who doesn't care about attention, he's doing it for the REEL and not for the REAL or whatever the hell it was, and he's a gasser. He bought a bunch of followers on Instagram. You can't make that stuff up. It's freaking crazy. All right, but now let's listen to what he has to say about Ariel Owen.
To share the things that maybe most people don't know about them. I mean, I got a message the other day. Most people didn't know that Ariel Lowen trains in her garage at her home. And they were kind of blown away that she wasn't a part of a training camp. And
Everybody knows that Ariel Lowen trains in her garage, dude. Everybody knows that. Do you not know the audience that you're talking to? Every person that was going to watch this show goes, yeah, we knew that she was there. How didn't you know? And then you're going to talk about it like no one knew. What?
I also think uncomfortable conversations are the secret sauce to move the needle in the right direction.
Is that what you think? You think?
And I wish more people were willing to have them, because they might not feel the best, but going back to the "this too shall pass" thing, your feelings are going to come and go. And so just have the uncomfortable conversation and be open to the fact that we both might learn something from it.
That's 3 right there. Uncomfortable situations are the secret sauce to move the needle in the right direction. Stated by Bryce Smith right there. Uncomfortable conversations. Who talks about that? Mr. Bryce Smith or Mr. Andrew Hiller? Well, let's just keep listening to what he has to say about the uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think there's a very interesting scenario around freedom of speech, right? Like, he is speaking a language that allows him to feel safe.
Right.
And you're speaking a language that allows you to feel safe, but also educate your children the way you want them to be educated. And so it creates this discrepancy within the messy middle.
And bring your brooms because it's a mess.
How do you convey each other's message? Most misunderstandings are basically just a manipulation of communication.
And before we get going on the whole thing, I had to throw that last bit in with all misunderstandings are just manipulations of communication. So that's just going to be an extra. So we've got 1, 2, 3. Number 1, he doesn't get offended. Number 2, doesn't care about getting attention, but we already disproved that. We know that he bought about 100,000 Instagram followers. And number 3, hard conversations are important. Well, let's just have a hard conversation. Let's go.
Hey, what's your fascination with Hiller and why? Is it because he's controversial, because he's a little bit against the grain, or what is it about him?
Nope.
What is it about Andrew Hiller? Where did that come from, Bryce? You're doing all this philosophical stuff and you're just talking about stuff. And then all of a sudden you talk about Andrew Hiller. Yeah. You don't know who Andrew Hiller is? He's got a YouTube channel. He's on Instagram. He likes to talk about people on the internet, make people feel uncomfortable. You should know who he is, but you do because you're talking about him, huh?
What do you mean by like high communicator?
You get really close to the freaking camera and you have the conversations like this.
When he made the video accusing Tia of being on steroids, I hated that.
I didn't see that one.
But I can no longer live with my lie.
Why did he do that?
I don't know why he did that.
Because I think that she used steroids.
If I was
And
Tia,
I think attention is the highest form of currency in some capacities for some people. I don't know. Some of it feels like a reach to me. Some of it feels like putting other people down to build them up.
Name one person that I have put down. Name one person, because I'll discuss with people. I'll have on anybody. I'll put their freaking picture and I'll talk about them depending on what it is that they're up to. But at no point am I bringing them down. And you'd know that if you watched any of my videos. It's not bringing people down. It's discussing them in a light where maybe the entire world can see that they're not doing things on the up and up. If I throw a puppy off of a bridge...
Excuse me. Excuse me. What are you doing?
And nobody saw it, does that still make me a bad person? Yeah, it still makes me a bad person.
That's how I roll.
Huh? No!
If somebody takes a video of me throwing a puppy off a bridge, is the person that posts the video of me throwing the puppy off the bridge putting me down? Like, no, I still did something wrong. And I deserve to have that video put on the internet.
the Tia thing in specific, you mean like accusing someone of doing steroids?
I think of that. I think some of the stuff that he's put out around Danny has been a little bit irresponsible.
There it is. There it is. He's talking about his friends. He doesn't like it. So he has all of these things. 1, 2, 3, doesn't get offended, doesn't care about attention, and everything's just a misunderstanding. The hard conversations are important unless they have to do with your friend, Danny. Wow, that was easy.
And I think it's purposeful because, in your words, Danielle Brandon and Danny Spiegel are needle movers. They get a lot of attention. And if you ever spend time with either of them, they're fucking hard workers too. They're trying to maximize their craft. And I think sometimes,
which is obvious, by the way, too.
Totally.
Clearly
sometimes I think there's just a humble manipulation of circumstance in order to elicit attention.
What is a humble manipulation. Humble manipulation. It sounds made up to me. More on that later.
That almost feels like he's capitalizing on them.
Again, if I'm stealing bread from the grocery store and I walk out and no one ever freaking knows about it, was I bad for stealing bread from the grocery store? You're not supposed to do that. You're taking money out of somebody else's pocket for taking that bread out of the grocery store. If somebody records me the whole time posted on the internet and I go to jail, that person is not capitalizing on me. That person is showing everybody that I steal bread.
And my wonder, going back to our thought processes around legacy, is if he's putting other people down for his personal growth.
He can't name one person that I have put down. Not one person have I ever put down. And if I put them down, then I immediately try to retract it, like, oh, I misspoke. But I can't even think of anything off the top of my head because I don't think that I've ever put anybody down. Just pointing out the things that people do isn't putting people down, Bryce. But maybe there's people in your circle who have had conversations in you. And remember that list I made, 1, 2, 3, 4? And then there was the honorable mention piece, which was misunderstandings are manipulations of communication. It sounds like there have been some miscommunications that you have had.
And I'm not saying that's necessarily his intention, but that's my speculation in observation of some of his work.
Well, he's very clear that he's all about the views.
Amen, brother.
He says that. Hey, I'm all about the views. Okay.
Totally. But 20 years from now, how does that sit?
If in 20 years, I have 1 million followers on YouTube and I'm still just saying, hey, that person didn't squat low enough. Hey, that person used to touch their chest on their push-ups and probably also keep themselves in alignment as they're moving so they're not doing this wormy push-up, then it's great. And if people like him want to keep on giving me fodder like this and saying that I'm putting down people who are worming their push-ups like that one guy did on that Murph video, oh, you shouldn't have been mean to him. He was just trying to do Murph. Oh my God. It's like, yeah, he was doing Murph the wrong way, which means he didn't do Murph, you idiot.
Idiot.
Right? Like you built this thing putting down other people.
You can't name one person that I've ever put down because I haven't done it.
Like, how does that enhance the quality of the CrossFit space? Like in the beginning,
it enhances it because everybody can see what's going wrong. You don't throw the puppy off the bridge and you don't steal the bread from the grocery store because those are things that you don't do in the world. And in the CrossFit space, you squat below parallel.
It was holding the line of these are the rules, you didn't hit the standards. But then it's become controversial speculation. And it's like, who knows exactly what's going on behind the scenes, which is why I love to podcast. I want to explore that. I want to see what's out there. And for all I know, people could be lying to me and manipulating me, but I'm okay with that because I'm allowing them to tell their story, as opposed to me throwing out some sort of fabrication that elicits harm.
One might say that I make a video and then you can capitalize on the video I make by having that person on your show to ask them why they did stuff. It's like an ecosystem. It's circular. Freaking capitalize on it, you dummy. Get some more followers. Asking my friend Danny Spiegel about the controversy in Andrew Hiller's video, but no, just you guys don't know. No, you couldn't possibly know what it's like to be her. Well, it's like, great, cool. I'm glad that she's in your circle and you know everything, but no one else does.
To ground this a little bit, let's say, for example, I think one of his first videos about her, I could totally be wrong, but was he was judging her muscle ups.
I honor that one. Unfortunately, that one was not in my presence at Invictus, so I can't specifically speak on it.
But you can watch the video, which I put on the internet, but you haven't watched any of my videos. Not one. But according to your honorable mention topic, which was that misunderstandings are manipulations of communication, somebody has told you some stuff about me, and there has been a manipulation, and you are misunderstanding what it is that I do over here, brah.
Let's also move the narrative in a slightly different direction now.
Sure. Yeah.
I love the NBA.
Of course you do.
All of these guys in some capacity are probably doing some sort of traveling.
No, I don't think that they're all doing some sort of traveling, but go ahead.
When you're at the top of the craft, there is a unique style. You are skirting the line a little bit. You're trying to maximize human potential in the midst of extreme intensity against the best in the world.
And you should be, I think. I think that's what you should be.
I mean, if you don't, quite frankly, you and I both know this, you're just not going to fucking make it.
It's really hard to hear that when the people that we watched as we were getting into the sport, I mean, freaking Bryce Froning dominated everything ever. And at what point was he ever doing anything that wasn't on the up and up as far as movement standards are concerned, or really anything in general? That's probably the biggest issue here, is that you see that and it's no longer that in every circumstance, and you're just comparing it to what he had done. What everybody during the 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18 time period was doing. They were all just moving the way that you're supposed to be doing things.
Right.
Like your score, if you're so perfect on your reps, you're just not going to elicit a score that is competitive. Let's just be honest.
That's not honest. That's not true. I've never seen Justin Medeiros doing anything wrong. I've never seen Tia Toomey doing anything. I've never seen Tia Toomey moving improperly. Patrick Vellner's a fantastic mover. Roman Krenikov's a fantastic mover. Laura Horvath is a fantastic mover on everything that isn't a handstand push-up. Freaking Ariel Lowen's a fantastic mover. All of the people on the podium, those people are fantastic movers. And they're the people who are winning. They're winning! Let's just be honest about what, you moron? I am Bryce Smith, the coach and the head podcaster who bought all my followers, and you're never gonna be great unless you cheat. Let's be honest.
And I mean, that's a huge issue as to when I look at the space. I talked to Fikowski about this. And
Did you talk to? Ha! Hey, if that thing on top of the Ariel Lowen comment from earlier doesn't lose his credibility for what he knows about anything, if it isn't the botting of the Instagram followers, if it isn't the contradicting about him being open to everybody,
I genuinely think everybody's striving to do their best.
and him liking fresh conversations, and him not getting offended, and he doesn't care about getting attention, talking about misunderstanding and miscommunication manipulation, it's the way he says Brent Fikowski's name. Oh, man.
A PFAA type thought processes. Let's ask a question. Let's not just assume negative intent.
It's not assuming negative intent. It's that person threw a puppy off a bridge. That is, by all freaking measures, not what you're supposed to do with dogs. Most recently in the Rogue Invitational, your good friend Danny Spiegel, in your affiliate, possibly even under your watchful eye, moved the freaking line in the wrong spot. When in the quarterfinals, everybody knew where the lines were supposed to be, but no, it's in the wrong spot. Everyone knew what happened to Laura Horvath. At least the people who watch Andrew Hiller's YouTube channel knew that she put it in the wrong spot. Now everyone knows, oh, it's not supposed to go here, it's supposed to go here. But also, it's not down-talking, it's not degrading. It's just pointing things out. Like, I'm pointing things out right now. And sure, I'm like, you're saying things all loud. Like, yeah, people like it. It's like that freaking circus clown. Andrew, drink your C4.
Bastardize the hell out of this individual.
Who? He made 10 videos on Danny Spiegel. He's so mean. They'll probably look at this and say, he's bastardizing the hell out of me. But if anybody had a freaking head on their shoulders, they'd be able to watch this and see it for what it was the first time. You did it to yourself. And what I did is I took it and I repurposed it and I made it much more clear. But you probably think that I'm bastardizing the hell out of you. I just don't think that you could see past your love and affection for your friends, your close circle of people. You really like them and you don't like when people make videos on them. Yeah, puppies don't matter and bread doesn't matter. It only matters when it's people.
Completely forget that they're a human being first. Let's step on them. Let's squash them. Let's kick them out the door for our own personal gain.
Okay.
I don't agree with that.
You ever heard that you don't listen to people who aren't doing it as well as you? Yeah, that really much applies right here. Sure, CrossFit Invictus's podcast has, 30, 40,000 followers on it, but their videos get, 100, 200 views. Why would I do what you're telling me to do when my only goal is to get as many freaking views and subscribers as possible? So that when I want to make a video pointing out something like the puppy getting kicked off the bridge, a la a handstand push-up inconsistency, or a squat not going below parallel, or if I want to go even further and go outside of the no rep zone and I want to talk about this guy in the CrossFit space who's being inconsistent with his message, I have more people listening to me than you do.
I think it deserves a healthy conversation for sure, but at the very least, if I were to provide a solution orientation, if we want to get credentials for most things, what do? With credentials, you typically have to go to like a testing center, right?
Okay.
So maybe that's the next iteration, right? Where like certain CrossFit affiliates have highly certified judges that then go to a testing center and, they perform these workouts and these qualifiers at the center with certified judges, where with it being so subjective, if a judge is allowing me to get away with it, I'm going to keep doing it.
I actually entirely disagree. I've thought about this, and people have said we need the rule book to be more extensive, more rules, and then you see what happened at Rogue, so I've disagreed with that as long as anyone's ever told me there needs to be more. There's got to be more done. There's got to be more done. No, there's got to be less done. The rules have to be clear, but there has to be people who uphold the standards. I don't think that there needs to be a single certified judge in the world. I don't think that there need to be judges at the CrossFit Games. I don't think that it would play very well for the spectacle, but what needs to happen is there need to be no judges. There needs to be just online video submissions where you have to put a video in. But what has to happen is if the video's messed up, and let's just say that there's something wrong, you're out. You get penalties for exactly those things. If you can't completely see exactly what it is and you can't do the workout, watch your own video and say, I'm 100% certain that this is going to be good. Upload CrossFit Games, sees my open workout, and you're good to go. Then I think that that might be the process. Hey, go do the open workout. What's the workout? 7 minutes of burpees. Do you have a judge? No. You just got to make sure that you touch your chest to the ground, touch the bar overhead. And not with one hand, but with two hands. And when you're measuring, make sure that you got your feet together when you're making the measurement to touch. If you don't do those things, or maybe you're going so freaking fast, and the CrossFit Games team sees it, they can just take that thing down. What happens is you're so scared.
Fear is a tool.
You're so scared to have your score taken out that you make sure that you do everything the right way. And this entire time, there were no judges that had to judge this person. You take the judge out of it and you put it entirely on the athlete until let's just say, I don't know, semifinals and the games. And even then, if you just said, hey, games athletes, go do Linda. And they're like, all right, where are the judges? There are no judges. What do you mean there are no judges on the floor? Yeah, just make sure that you're doing the reps the right way. And we've got video cameras everywhere, and the judges are going to assess your score afterwards. You're just like, wait a minute, really? So it's really bad for the sport at that level, and it probably won't work, but it will totally work in the open and in the quarterfinals. No judges necessary.
It's an interesting conversation because then you could also get even deeper. We saw it with Rich and Scott Panchek back in the day where it was like Rich got away with a few things sometimes.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't, you idiot.
Dropping the bar behind him and things like that to get across the finish line. Or maybe I think at that time they hadn't made that rule yet.
All right, he brings it up. They didn't have that rule at that time. Fair, but also completely outside of what you're talking about right here. If freaking your friend Danny doesn't go below parallel on a squat and she blames it on her big leg, that is not the same as Froning doing something that is allowed at the time, because he wouldn't have done it if they said don't throw the bar behind you. There have been competitions where they say control the bar to the floor and the athletes have to do that. But back in 2014 where you're talking about, there was no rule against it, so that thing wrong, like Fikowski, like Lowen.
But like geniuses and high-level performers like that, or even Michael Jordan, they got away with a lot more. I mean, they used to make jokes that, you know, MJ could make certain moves and do certain things that just other people couldn't get.
Matt Fraser, Rich Froning, Tia Toomey didn't get away with stuff that other people couldn't get. It did not happen. And Danny Spiegel is not Michael Jordan.
Because there's a ton of scrutiny that comes with no repping a high-level athlete as well. And I wish that he could soften that approach.
I'm going to soften your face with my face. No, not that. That doesn't make sense. Never mind.
At the very least, not just for the athletes, but for his future self in 20 years, who's not going to like the fact that he put harm on other individuals.
At no point in my life have I looked back at any other portion of my life and said, I wish I had done that differently. And I'm assuming the same's going to happen right now. But thanks, Dad.
By harm, what do you mean? What do you mean by harm?
He's using verbiage and assumption to grow his views while speculating the intent of certain athletes in pursuit of maximizing their potential.
Suggest that Tia's on steroids, a sponsor drops her, she loses money, and that harms her.
Potentially.
For example. Okay, good.
It's also affects her reputation. Now that word, when you put it into Google, I mean,
for the record, this dude doesn't say, again, what I've done to anybody. Stefan gives a great example right there. You make a video on Tia and your sponsor drops her. And he goes,
potentially.
All he had to say is, yes, that is a great example. Nice job. Thank you for telling me that one, because I have no examples myself, because he doesn't have a single example of one thing that I've done that's ever hurt anybody, with the exception of possibly a Garrett Sager who does a Wadapalooza workout, and I offer him all this money to go and do it, and then this past weekend I meet the guy who freaking got the fill-in spot at Wadapalooza because I knocked out Garrett Sager, who couldn't do a workout and he cheated to try to get his way to Wadapalooza. But all this dude sees is his friends, and because all he sees are his friends, I'm the bad guy, and I'm not the bad guy.
I just typed in Tia's name and the word steroids didn't come up afterwards. Oh, let me type in Tia.
I'm sure it's not going to be at the top.
See, and he keeps on doing this stuff. If you say that Tia's on steroids and you make a video on it, then everyone's going to see it forever. And have you ever been to anywhere on the internet in relation to anything? There's everything, everywhere. It doesn't matter if I do it or this person does it. The only reason that you're upset is because I have people who watch my stuff. The Tia video has 80,000 views. That's fantastic. That's great. I'm being rewarded for making that video. It's like freaking giving a dog food and the dog starts to beg. Why is the dog begging? Because people watch the stuff. It's the simplest equation ever. You don't agree with it? Well, that's okay. In 20 years, you're still going to have 100 views on every single one of your videos because you're for the REAL, not for the REEL, and you're a gasser.
Right? But it's probably going to be intermixed now because of that video.
You mean like everything that's intermixed on the internet?
It's at least in the internet ethos.
Everything's in the internet ethos.
And you know, maybe it would be there anyway.
Steroids, Hiller's name does pop up. Very first one.
Yeah.
So so since she's also your friend, when someone says something about her that you either think is not true or that is hurtful towards her, you don't like it.
I mean, I would take my personal bias out of it. I mean, I would say that if it was anybody else in the CrossFit space as well.
Enter Dave Hippensteel.
Right? I think it's a humble reach to elicit personal gain. And I definitely think there's a better way to do it.
What is a humble reach? Humble reach?
And you talked about the slow growth of podcast and YouTube and all those things. I would rather do things the right way, that I don't have to look over my shoulder or hurt other people, even if it's slow and doesn't lead to enhanced monetary gain.
Isn't that ironic considering that we've already proven that he bought 100,000 people on his Instagram? He'd rather do things the right way, and then Andrew Hiller makes a video on him because he couldn't help but talk about him on the Sevon podcast. And now everyone knows that you bought 100,000 followers because you didn't do anything then, but you'd rather do things the right way. Do them the right way. Organically grow that 100. Oh yeah, you didn't do that.
Because I choose to be an honorable person. Not everybody in the world deserves honor.
What is this, Mulan?
Fa Mulan.
Present.
Speaking without permission.
But I think going back to character, if you choose to be an honorable person, you're leaving the world a better place than the way you found it. And I think that should be all of our missions as we're in this media space, in this connection, storytelling space. If we do that, man, everybody's tide rises.
Yeah, and if everybody just skirts the line on the movement standard, it's a race to the bottom. It's the problem with CrossFit affiliates trying to undercut everybody. It's like, well, that affiliate down the road is 135, so I got to be 125. And now, they're like, they're 125, so I'm going to be 115. And then all the affiliates are undercharging everybody because they're not valuing themselves and they're not holding themselves to the number that they were supposed to have, and then they all go out of business. That's what you're asking for right here. Oh, we're going to let them travel in the NBA, and then everybody's traveling like you said they were. So there you go, you dummy.
Yeah, I did not
another
see...
one that I did not like how that went down either.
He's talking about Dave Hippensteel.
But
yeah, that looked tough. I know Dave was a little upset by it. I didn't see all the specificity associated with that, but in my humble time spent with Dave.
What is humble time? Humble manipulation, humble reach. How is he so humble?
He does have some biomechanical issues where he can't lock out his elbows. I don't know what Hiller got on him about.
A video where he is touching his head with a barbell, and you're not allowed to do that. He's overhead squatting, and the bar is touching his head, and then he tries to take off his shoes on some box step-ups, which should have been pistols, but aren't pistols, and then they are pistols, and then on his ring muscle-ups, the entire video, he leaves in the background, and he pulls himself out of the CrossFit Games, which in my humble opinion is an honorable thing that Hippensteel did. What ended up not being so honorable, in my humble opinion, is how he ended up handling it afterwards. It was, oh, poor me, not, yeah, I messed all this stuff up. When it comes to those mechanical issues, if you can't do it, you can't do it. So don't do the sport, because part of the 10 components of fitness are making sure that you have the mobility, positions, flexibility to do the things that they're asking you to do, right?
I definitely see how he beats to a different drum. He goes against the grain. He does things that are different. And in the beginning, I thought it was cool because I thought he was holding the standard of guidelines and the rules and regulations of the professionality of the sport.
That's one of those things that kind of really lock you in. I've always made these videos, dude. All the time I've made these videos. Let me go back to the beginning of my YouTube really quick, just so you could see that I've always made these videos. First video, CrossFit and steroids. Elite athletes don't care about you. How and why did Tia Toomey gain 22 pounds? Katrin David's daughter sets a bad example. Are they on steroids? Mel O'Brien blocked me. 47,000 views, one of my first videos, and you would probably think that I was picking on Mel O'Brien, but I was just pointing out the fact that she didn't do muscle ups right. Pushing away at the top. You can't do that. Oh, and then there's the one that he's probably remembering, which is the one that he wasn't at the gym for, the Danny Spiegel invalid workout. But yeah, Bryce, I've been doing this forever, which you would know if you had done 4 seconds of research, which I did as I was making this video.
Assumed positive intent and then explored it deeper just out of sheer curiosity. But it's almost like the addictive personality set in, and he got so much success so fast that it steered him in a little bit more of a unhealthy, controversial direction that started to negatively impact the space. But because negativity is typically louder than positivity, you get rewarded with views.
I really appreciate the psychiatric evaluation that I'm being put under by the guy who's talking about Fikowski and Lowen. The guy who doesn't realize he's being a hypocrite when he says things such as, he doesn't get offended, but this entire thing seems as if I have offended somebody or him. He doesn't care about getting attention, but he paid for his Instagram following. He thinks that hard conversations are important, but he doesn't like the person who is having the hardest conversations in the CrossFit space. And he doesn't understand that the entire thing about me is that he misunderstands me, which he stated is simply a manipulation of communication. So what I envision is Bryce has a conversation over in his CrossFit Invictus bubble, and let's just say that there's an individual who might be doing their reps the wrong way. And let's say this individual says, oh, this is what I saw. Bryce doesn't do any research, and then he does this. And he's doing it because there was a manipulation in communication.
The 10-inch penis gets more attention than the 5-inch penis. So I don't know how I jumped. I guess it's 5-inch penis and a 10-inch penis.
I mean, you're basically saying size matters.
I just wanted to leave that in there because I thought it was funny. 10-inch penis gets way more attention than the 5-inch penis. But here's the thing. I think that I've pretty well put this guy into a box. Everybody can see. He's someone who just wants to push stuff around. Everybody except everybody. What's the first thing that he said in this?
I genuinely think everybody's striving to do their best.
Striving to do their best. That is unless it's me. And it is unless you're talking about the people that he knows.
And so I've always just like assumed positive intent and then explored it deeper just out of sheer curiosity.
And then also he's going to assume that everything you're doing is good. And then he wants to explore you deeper. That is unless you talk about the people that he knows personally. So that's all you got about the most humble man in fitness. And wait a minute. Have we, you don't know how humble Bryce is? Well, don't let me tell you how humble Bryce is. There's nothing quite like hearing how humble an individual is outside of letting them tell you for themselves. I give you Bryce, the humblest man in CrossFit. Andrew Hiller, out.
That humbly translates to so many different elements of life. Yeah, I mean, I humbly try to grab from different arenas of life. And I'm not a parent, so maybe it's irresponsible for me to share this humble piece.
I asked you. No, I like it.
That is, in my humble opinion, the best box jumpers, in my humble opinion, are really good skateboarders and snowboarders. Because, I mean, in my humble opinion, that humbles us.
Clearly
sometimes I think there's just a humble manipulation of circumstance in order to elicit attention, right? I think it's a humble reach to elicit personal gain. I know Dave was a little upset by it. I didn't see all the specificity associated with that, but in my humble time spent with Dave, he does have some biomechanical issues where he can't lock out his elbows. I don't know what Hiller got on him about, but that is a humble gray area within the CrossFit space. You and I both know this. The judges typically do an assessment. Hey, yeah, it's a really interesting speculation for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll also humbly say this. One of the genius things that Glassman did is he diminished the level of specificity in his definition of CrossFit. And I used the humble example with you